Okay, welcome to Preppers in Paradise. This is episode 3, and we're talking about EMP. I just wanted to actually say, can you hear a feedback on my recording there, Alex?
It did just for a split second, but not
Screw
too
it.
bad.
Screw it, let's do it.
Not too bad.
We're all good, we're all good. We're all good in the hood. But it's not so good if there is an EMP event.
No,
Not
good
good.
at all. We
Not
wouldn't be
good.
talking right now, Will. We would not be
Nicht
talking.
gut. Nicht gut. It's so EMP is something that I only learnt about this year. So surprisingly enough, it's not really in people's public awareness. Tell us, just break it down really simply for us, Alex.
Sure.
What is an EMP?
Okay, so an electromagnetic pulse. Okay, it's a brief period of energy that basically produces an electromagnetic field. Okay, which travels, can induce currents on long lines and on electronic components. There are natural EMPs. You have lightning strikes. You have things like coronal mass ejections or solar flares that come from the sun that affect the magnetosphere, which causes what we know and see as the aurora borealis. But it can actually cause that magnetosphere to really shift to where it's screwing with our electronic components in our space systems and satellites, and also infrastructure on the ground. The natural things happen periodically from those coronal mass ejections and the magnetosphere getting tweaked with. And typically it's not a global event that happens. It's usually a regionally isolated incident, but it can be in a good geographical area. And it can blow transformers. It can, and they've been happening. They've been recorded since I think 1859 was the Carrington event. That's when telegraphs were really messed with. I believe it was in Hawaii, though, so it was out in the Pacific where that happened. But it's happened in 2006. There were other ones that cause issues with everything that's got circuitry in it, and specifically where induced currents can cause shorts. So, from a man-made
so we just rewind just a second because there's a lot of information there. Okay, so we've got so it's an electromagnetic pulse, which basically disrupts or destroys electrical hardware, and systems, either naturally caused or man-made. So you talked about the Carrington event. So the Carrington event was in 1859.
1859, yep.
So just about 150 years ago, right?
Yep.
And ironically, it was just after we started developing telegraph. So it's almost like a little bit of a message there. We started developing this technology in the early 1800s.
Yep.
And then suddenly we have this event that kind of like disrupts them, right? But nothing like that naturally has happened since. So, but why is
1989? There was a big solar storm and knocked out portions of Canada's electric grid. Okay,
wow.
major blackout in the area in different regions.
Yeah.
But they're typically isolated incidents to where, after a short period of time, they fix the issue. Okay.
Sure.
So like 9 hours, the solar storm in '89 hit in Canada's electrical grid. It only impacted it for about 9 hours. They were without power. Okay.
Yeah.
But there's been many. In 2000, another solar storm. It was an X5 on the solar flare scale, and basically it also knocked out some satellites, radio blackouts in affected area. So it's an isolated little incident, right?
Localized,
so it impacts you, but the rest of the world may not even know it's taking place.
We're talking about like a mass EMP that could wipe out, like a large amount of the grid, in America or wherever, or globally.
Well, that would be a man-made. That would be a man-made incident, and that's based upon what people have experimented with, and the experts have determined would be like a high altitude nuclear burst.
Yeah.
Maybe 2 or 3 of them over the United States could severely critically impact our infrastructure, blowing out our transformers, and basically our substations and our electrical grid, so that you would lose power, okay, and communication as well, because your cell phone towers would be impacted by it. So
Right.
you lose communication, you lose electricity. When it's that large, you can imagine how long it would take to get things back up and running, right? There's nowhere to run and go. You would have to get help from outside, but the government also realizes this. I mean, they've been, our government, the U.S. government, has been doing things to try to coordinate for resiliency with EMPs in the event
Right.
what would happen, because they realize it's so easy to have it happen.
hmm So we
So
talk. So
when
basically, like an EMP
Mhm.
is like it's a highly catastrophic event that has a low-ish probability, but even the low-ish probability of an EMP is something like 10 to 12% every decade, right? So, I mean,
Yeah.
actually, in my mind, that stacks up to once every 10 years, right?
hmm
Or,
hmm
at least a 1 in 10 chance. Um, uh, yeah, one
Yeah.
in 10 chance every 10 years, okay? So we're talking about something that could be more catastrophic even than forms of conventional warfare, because it has the ability to take out a whole
Yeah.
nation's grid, right?
Your military installations would be impacted, right? So here's the thing: when would you use an EMP? Well, if anyone launches a nuke at us, we're gonna see it, right? So
hmm
that right there would trigger a series of decisions that are pre-planned and O plans and com plans, contingency plans and operational plans, and we have steps in place to do it. The thing is, if it came across as, hey, we're doing testing, or hey, we're not going to war, here's a heads up, we're launching a satellite into orbit, it turns out to be, because when people launch, the Earth orbits underneath it. So, yes,
Yeah.
things fly over the continental United States. And so, God forbid, if one of those things were an actual nuclear weapon to cause a high altitude EMP,
Yeah.
it would probably be in a first strike situation. So it would be an attempt to completely decapitate us right off the bat.
Yeah.
And, you know, um, with everything, you would have to determine who did it, right? And you would have to understand intent, and then you would have to determine whether you're going to respond or not. Are you going to launch nukes at a country who launches a nuclear weapon into space? Maybe they say, hey, we had an experiment on this plane or on this rocket, we didn't tell you about it, and it did have nuclear stuff on it, it did blow up, oops, sorry, please don't go to war with us, right? Would we launch nukes in response to that? Who knows? But um, the impact on our infrastructure, on our military installations, our ability to respond would be pretty tremendous.
hmm
And so nobody would die initially from the explosions. Satellites in low Earth orbit would definitely be impacted.
hmm
So, and that's the thing too, right? It's like each year more and more things are going into LEO. More people using Starlink now, right? Yeah, Ukraine is definitely using it. That's in the news all the time to conduct their operations against the Russians. So, I mean, it would be much more of an impact today than it was even 10 years ago.
Right.
Yeah.
So we're talking about, just so people who've never ever even heard of what an EMP is, we're talking about, in a man-made context, we're talking about a nuclear weapon being
hmm
detonated at high altitude from
hmm
anything from about 40 kilometers to even 300 kilometers, right? Up in the
That's right.
up in the
That's right.
altitude.
Yep. hmm
And in fact, to a degree, depending on the strength, or the load of the weapon,
hmm
the higher up it gets detonated, the more
The further
devastating
it
it
can
can be,
reach.
because it
Yeah,
can actually reach further, right?
that's
But
correct.
so we're talking about a nuclear weapon being
hmm
detonated, not in a conventional way that people usually think of a nuke being detonated on the
No.
ground,
Right.
creating fallout in a
Nope.
city or whatever.
You would
It's
not worry
in
about that. That's
the
right.
sky and then
hmm
the purpose of that is to not kill people through contact, but to kill people by completely devastating all of their systems,
Yeah.
infrastructure that rely on the grid. But the thing is, as our grid, as you're saying, as our software and hardware
Mm-hmm.
becomes completely reliant on these systems that have like SCADA systems, right? This is
Yep.
a type of valve,
Mm-hmm.
that is reliant on these smart chips or whatever. As the more high tech we become, the more fragile our grid
Vulnerable. The more vulnerable
becomes.
we are,
Exactly.
very much so. So
So what would it take
there,
it to if we had an EMP?
yeah.
Like,
What would it take to what?
what happens? I mean, the light's going to go
So
out. Are
yeah,
the comms going to be down?
absolutely.
Am I going to be
Your
able to?
lights would go out. Your electricity would go out. You'd probably have a catastrophic failure, a chain reaction, depending where the EMP was over what infrastructure that would be impacted. I mean,
Mhm,
this is something that we worry about from a cyber attack as well, right? But the problem with the EMP is there's actual physical damage to components, right?
mhm,
Whereas you can do physical damage, you can have physical effects with a cyber attack,
mhm.
like Stuxnet. Okay, if you think about Stuxnet and the Iranian centrifuges, I don't know if you heard about that, but that's a cyber attack, 0 day event that actually caused things to physically get destroyed. Okay, you can research that; it's pretty interesting. But cyber attacks very often can be attributed. Right, it takes some searching and some researching and some digging to determine who it came from, but you could probably discover that. Same thing with an EMP, but at that point, it's like it's almost too late. I would say a cyber attack can also have catastrophic events on infrastructure. It goes after one, it fails, and then the
Mhm.
next infrastructure adjacent to it fails, and it just causes a chain reaction. But an EMP is going to affect a lot of things. There's a lot of people who think your phones, if they're not in a Faraday bag, would
Yeah.
be destroyed, pretty worthless. There's a lot of people who think your vehicles, even if they're not electric vehicles, the fact that there's so many electric components, circuitry, circuit boards, things in vehicles, they think your vehicles nowadays, modern ones, would be destroyed.
So your Tesla is kaput, right?
Your oh yeah, your Tesla's kaput for two reasons. Your charging stations ain't working because your power grid's not working, right? Your power plant's not working,
Yeah.
and then it's
It
not
was
working
also
because it's
never a good
probably
idea to get a Tesla in the first place, anyway.
it's fried on the inside. In this part of the country, I would never get an electric vehicle simply because of the the
Judgment,
battery life in extreme cold. It just it like halves it.
or the amount
It's
you'd
like,
get judged by your neighbors.
well, yeah, yeah, you would. Although some of them love Elon Musk now, right? So
Right.
you might get applauded for having a Tesla nowadays. I don't know.
God
The
bless
country's
him.
crazy. Our
God
country's
bless him.
nuts. Yeah.
So the cyber attack and an EMP are two separate things, but they have similar effects, and they could be perhaps launched concurrently. You could have a cyber attack
Oh yeah.
first, which could
Oh yeah.
confuse. We
Oh
wouldn't
yeah.
know whether that the missile was coming in,
Yep.
or it could happen sort of like like shortly after. Well, it would
Yep.
probably more likely happen before, right? And then the EMP
Yep.
would take out. Cool. So, but the thing is, we're talking about this because we're not trying to, like fearmonger, but
Oh no, it's a
it's
real
just
thing. I mean, I think we mentioned it, right? We mentioned there are commissions and things, right? 2019 Executive Order 13865 on March 26, 2019 talks about coordinating national resilience of electromagnetic pulses.
yeah.
In the book you read 1 second after, in the very beginning, there's I can't remember who the congressman, but he's talking about maybe a senator, I can't remember, but he's talking about the very real threat that comes from EMPs. It's like, oh, that they would never do that because then we'd go to war. Well, okay, so let's say something's happening in Taiwan, we start sending out the ships, right?
Yeah.
Our aircraft carriers, our fleets heading in that direction to go respond to a crisis. If China feels it's a vulnerability, they could potentially do a first strike. They could inform us we're not going to kill Americans on the homeland, but there's this thing coming, and don't go to World War III because we don't all want to die. I mean, you know what I'm saying? It's a lot of, depending who the administration is, depending the way they feel about things, it's very hard to predict how you would respond. But it's very possible that it would be used in the first strike.
So
So,
we're saying that an EMP is a likely, like it's in all of the manuals of different like hostile
yeah.
states, but it's also in our own it's also in our own strategic kind of like
Hmm.
plans for World War III scenarios. You just
Yeah.
mentioned Taiwan. That's something, it would be highly likely to be used by
Yeah.
China in Taiwan quite soon, in fact. But you know, in the event of like an EMP striking the grid of, like, let's say Europe or America, some
Hmm.
people say that up to 80 to 90% of the population could die. I mean, is
Yeah.
that
And
true, or is
that's,
that an exaggeration?
no, I mean, that's over time, right? Everything's an equation with respect to time.
Yeah.
So think about what happens when your electricity goes out. What happens when your electricity goes out in the heat of Missouri today, 99 degrees, extreme humidity because it's been raining nonstop for weeks.
Yeah.
What happens when the power goes out? Well, first of all, anything that's refrigerated, unless you've got a generator, is going to go bad, right? So insulin, certain medicines people need,
Yes.
will go bad, right? Well, we got generators at hospitals. Okay, how long do those generators last, right? How are
Hmm.
you going to pump gas if your pumps are not working at the gas station, right?
Hmm.
If satellites are impacted, whatever satellites they are, what signals are being impacted, is GPS being impacted, and if you lose your timing, then things don't sync up, then your
Hmm.
ATMs won't work, your gas station pumps won't work. So timing is a big part of that, that no one ever really thinks about. So you're basically not going to have electricity. You're not going to be able to get gas. And
Hmm.
then what do people do? What do people do? I mean, we saw in 2020, right? You know the government would declare martial law,
Hmm.
right? But if no one's got their TVs on, if no one has their cell phones on, or if their cell phone circuitry is fried, how are people getting information?
Hmm.
I mean, you know, depending where you're at, hey, what was that? I don't know. Who knows? Maybe it was an EMP. Okay, if it was an EMP, what do we do? I don't know. I need to get some gas. And then what are you going to do? You're going to go to a gas station. There's going to be long lines, right? And they're not going to be able to pump. You're going to have a lot of unhappy customers who are
Hmm.
probably going to try to find any way to get gas.
Hmm.
Um, and it will escalate like that
Cascade.
over time. We saw in 2020 in our major cities when people were dying, right? People don't think about the volume. How
Hmm.
much room do we have at hospitals, right? Well, surely we got tens of thousands of hospital rooms in Kansas City. No, we don't. We've got thousands of hospital rooms in Kansas City, right? And if something happens that catastrophic, are people going to go to work? Probably
Hmm.
not. They're going to go home. They're going to protect their own, right? So
Hmm.
it's like, what happens to all the people in the hospital?
Hmm.
Are they going to keep them in a hot building if they're sick? Are people going to come and get their loved ones out? What if you don't have loved ones? It's just this catastrophic thing that will take place. God forbid if something like that ever happens. And so it's worth being a little prepared. I think doing some basic things
Okay.
to help make your life a little easier.
So,
Yeah.
so it's a cascade of events really that would
Yes.
start with, I guess, refrigeration starts
Mm-hmm.
to, there's only really enough food for about 2 days in any like supermarket.
Yeah.
Everything in your fridge is going to go. Water eventually will go because all of the systems
Yeah.
that monitor and control water supply rely
Yep.
on things that
Public
can be
water.
taken out.
Yep.
So,
Sewage, water. When sewage stops working and it gets backed up, I mean, that's a mess. And
mm,
then, you throw in natural things like rain and your sewers are backed up now and your, sewer systems are just getting flooded and now you have feces everywhere. Guess what happens? Disease increases, right?
Mm,
People aren't showering. People aren't washing their hands after they cut their fingers.
mm.
All the things just like blow up as far as people getting sick and dying. Simple things like cuts, um, can be life threatening.
So it's
Yeah,
yeah, it's it's not
and again, it's like delivery. Guess what? Amazon ain't coming after an EMP. Amazon is not coming after a
yeah,
cyber attack if you're in an area, a region that's been isolated.
and neither
So
are the police.
how are you getting your meds? And the police probably are not coming. Okay,
Yeah,
depending how bad it gets, they would declare martial law. So if it's localized, like to a region, yes, you have
yeah.
all the other people helping, like we do here in the United States. FEMA, has their regions broken up, and if there's one area but if your whole country's experiencing it, that's when
Wouldn't be.
it's a huge issue.
But I mean, what plans and what do the military do in that kind of scenario, and what do the police do? Do their systems like kind of backed up by alternative
Yeah.
sources of energy, or what do they do?
So, of course, the military would respond, right? By law, they would respond. Um, the difficulty with law enforcement would be the sheer numbers, right? You would have to get some kind of support from the National Guard. But, even there, it's like time, right? So maybe a few weeks, right? Maybe a few months. But guess what? After a while, your soldiers are going to be like, this sucks. I want to go home. I got to check on my wife. My kids can't eat. I haven't seen my wife and kids in weeks. I haven't talked to them on the cell phone, and we have no way of communicating. I need to know everything's okay at home. So guess what's going to happen to your soldiers? There's going to be a lot of AWOLs. There's going to be a lot of people leaving to go back to the farm or back to the house to make sure mama's okay. Um, I think that's a reality that a lot of people don't consider.
Are their
You
systems robust enough? Like, is the military hardware and police hardware able to withstand an EMP?
So I don't think police hardware necessarily is hardened against EMP. I know a lot of systems, specifically during the Cold War, a lot of things were hardened just because of the possibility of tactical nukes in the Fulda Gap, in Europe and stuff like that. So your tanks and everything, your radio systems, things were hardened.
Mm,
After the Cold War, there was less of a requirement for it. There are still certain systems, communication systems, and things that are hardened against EMP, but the civilian population on the whole does not have things that are hardened for that.
cool. So basically, we've become
You're
victims
you're
of our own technical
you're
advancement.
basically. I like to think of it this way: not everyone's going to die, but you're going to go back to the way my wife's parents, who are in their 70s, late 70s, the way they grew up as kids here in Missouri, and the way their parents lived, right?
Hmm.
No AC in the house, no fans, no AC. They would open doors, open windows, and they would spend a lot of time on the porch, okay?
Hmm.
They would can things, okay?
Hmm.
They had wood burning stoves,
Yeah,
and they would use wood burning stoves. They had a root cellar to keep things cool, right?
yeah,
They would hunt. They would salt things. They would can meat. Absolutely grow their own things.
yes.
Hunt, supplement rabbits. I mean, I talked to my father-in-law. He's eaten about everything. Bullfrogs. People around here still hunt them with gigs.
Wow.
Guess what? Bullfrogs are now on the menu, right? Turtles, snapping turtles. Anything and everything that can become a food source is now going to get used
The
again.
thing is, though, Alex, it's so sad because the thing is, like, we've lost that skill set, and this
Oh
is why
yeah,
this podcast is so important. This
yeah,
is why, like, what we're trying to do as a business is, I believe, important. Trying to engage people in like using those skill sets again because
yeah.
you can learn them in about a year. Like you could pick up some really good skills in about a year, but it takes so long for us to build that like as secondhand knowledge, and then it just takes a generation to lose it. We're so reliant on
Absolutely.
these systems that are so fragile.
So
So what can
what
people
have
do?
you discovered, Will, about books? I mean, what about the value of books? Because your internet's gone. I mean,
Yeah,
my gosh, how many times in a day do we use the internet to answer questions? And now that
yeah,
source of information's gone.
yeah.
What do you learn about
Well, I'll tell
books?
you. So look, I've been thinking a lot about it, and we will be publishing a book at some point, God willing, with the information that we gather and that we share with people, and that we
Hmm.
learn from what we're doing in our installs for our gardens. But I've got several
Hmm.
really great books. I've got books about small farms, regenerative
Hmm.
agriculture by Richard Perkins.
Hmm.
This is no grid su- survival
Awesome.
project.
Yes,
So that's
that's
99,
practical. That's
99
that's
projects in there.
that's gold. That's
Yeah,
gold in an outage. I mean, that's just
amazing
priceless.
stuff in there. And we will be fitting some of these systems for our clients if they don't
Awesome.
know how to do it.
That's
I've got,
awesome.
we've got, we've got allotment month by month.
Hmm.
Yeah, so that's your seasonal veg growing.
Hmm.
Got edible and medicinal wild
That's
plants of
key.
Britain and Ireland. Robin
Oh
Harker,
yeah.
this is great.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
Eat weeds. This is your recommendation. We've got the
Hmm.
civil defense book, and he
Hey,
speaks a lot. He speaks a lot about EMP, doesn't he?
yes, and that is key right there because it's not every man for himself. It's working as a community,
Yeah,
right? Taking the skill sets that everyone has and determining what they have and seeing where your gaps are and
yeah.
working as a community together. That's absolutely vital.
As you say, but it's the thing is, it's like, okay, if that happens, and if I've prepped myself, so I've got some building materials, I've got some water tanks, I've got,
Hmm.
hopefully, 6 months to a year's worth of food. I've got some
Hmm.
ability to grow food. I've got some ability
Hmm.
to cook food. Perhaps I've got some generators. I've got all of these different things. But then also knowledge and our reliance
Yes.
upon AI and Google. Even myself, I'm guilty of it. Hey, what
Yes.
does ChatGPT say? Come on,
Uh-huh.
people, like, don't be lazy. You need to
Yeah.
have some books, and you need to be thinking for yourself, because there's so many manuals out there of
Yep.
DIY builds of, like, okay, how do I build a root cellar?
Hmm.
How do I even try to, like, utilize natural heat currents to make it cooler in my house, etc., etc., etc. Anyway,
Right.
your point about books,
Yeah.
you got to
Yeah.
have
It's just
books.
so good on you. Good on you for figuring that out. Because if you do lose the internet, where are you going to go? I guess you could try to go to a public library, but
Yeah,
anyone else that's paying attention is probably going to go to the public library, and they may not return their books on time. So you don't want to be in that position. If it's I go to halfpricebooks.com, I go to thriftbooks.com, and I get a
okay,
book for very affordable prices.
yes,
And you'd be amazed how many things are out there that you're just like, surely this book is not out there. Yes, it is, and it's very cheap.
yeah. So you recommended a bunch of books to me. I've got some coming.
Hmm.
Some of them are kind of from the homestead community, some of them from the emergency preparedness community.
Hmm.
Um, but the 1 second after book, let's talk about that, because I've been listening to the
Yeah.
audio book.
So what did you think about it? So first of all, did you finish the whole thing, or are
I'm
you
no, I'm
still in the middle
halfway
of it?
through. I'm halfway
Halfway
through.
through.
I'm a very slow and terrible reader, but I still
Hmm.
try.
Hmm.
And so this guy, he was working as a what was he doing? Was he working as a government contractor? Or was he working for the government?
He was a
William.
retired '06, I believe. He was a retired colonel from the army. He had a
Okay.
combat arms background. I
Right.
think he ended up teaching in a university, in a local small town university in the hills. Was it Tennessee? I can't remember exactly where the setting was, but or maybe it was West Virginia. Anyway, somewhere like Appalachia
Yeah.
situation, and just was at a small town, lived in a small town, was a part of a small town community, and taught at the local university. And then something happened.
Hmm.
Something happened, right? We won't story the plot, or we won't mess up the plot or
Hmm.
give away the story, but something happens to cause society as they know it to stop functioning as they know it, right?
Mhm.
And so what are the things that you noticed or that caught you by surprise from the book?
So we're talking, just if anyone hasn't picked up, we're talking about 1 second after, which is a book by William Forstern. He was, he
Mm-hmm.
said, he was a retired colonel, and he talks about an EMP event.
Mm-hmm.
And what struck me was that there's a scene at a certain point where he has to make the decision about how to enforce, like, law and order, and to punish some people who have done something that is morally wrong.
Yes.
Um, and without going into too much detail, the suspension of law and order, and how someone would organize like that kind of process without those normal, um, the police or the military being,
Yeah.
because he basically says, if we allow the military or the police to, I'm just going to say it, execute these people,
Uh-huh.
we live in a police state.
Mm-hmm.
And if that happens, then basically we're handing ourselves over to communism,
Right.
right?
Right.
And so the way that the civilian steps in that moment, although he does have a military background, the way
Mm-hmm.
that the civilian steps in to actually lead his community is really interesting, and to do the right thing.
Yes.
Um, and that was interesting because the hero of the story uses his military experience and manages to, and he ends up being like a kind of key leader
Yep.
for this
Key leader
community.
in his community. Yep. Yes, he does. Yeah,
And
I mean, I spoke to a an abbot actually recently who took a trip across Europe. I think all the way from Serbia to Russia, and he was actually doing research. He had a series of questions. I hope he publishes a book one day
yeah,
about his experience. But he asked about 13, whatever, 15 questions, the same standard set of questions he had for each community. How do they deal with these things? How did they do this? And you know, one of the things he discovered was that people that screwed things up, that did messed up things, were punished, right? And if you don't have anything, you can't dock them their pay, or you can't, you have to do some things that are pretty drastic by today's standards, right? You have to take something from them they care about, or
yeah.
you have to beat the living daylights out of them, right? Or even risk, I mean, what did they do in Europe in the old days if you did something absolutely wrong? You would go in a stockade on the town square, right? And everyone would throw rotten vegetables at you. Why did they do that? Because they needed to enforce discipline, and
Hmm.
they needed an example to be made of when someone really screwed up, right? Well, what would happen in our society if it got to that point? You would have to start putting those things in place. And you're right. If you leave it up to the state to do it, A, they're probably not going to be there. But B, you kind of don't want them to do it. You want to handle it at the local level,
Hmm.
because you know the people better. You know the situation better than they do, right? So, yes, that's a very, very important point about the book. Yep.
Also, one of the other things that really struck me was that um, the old people dying in the care homes really, really reminded me of 2020. I was like, wow,
Yes.
this is so
Yes.
reminiscent of like this thing of like, well, they're old, so,
Yes.
and just the most vulnerable people, the most defenseless of people, in
Would
these
die.
mass
Yes.
kind of like crises, are the people to just kind of, frankly, I know that our government, I mean, I won't say, I don't want to judge our government, because anyway, but there were people in our COVID response who said, hey, if a few 100,000 old people die, whatever.
It's a
And
sad
that,
reality. That's a
yeah.
sad reality. Yeah. Yeah, the old, the destitute, the handicapped, all those people, unless they have someone specifically taking care of them, they're not in a good situation because they can't survive. And when we talk about these situations, there is very much a survival aspect of it, right? And we don't recommend the whole lone man out there on his own, surviving on his own, because that's just not practical. We've said that before. So, but developing the skill sets is absolutely important. What you were speaking about, getting involved in your community, knowing people in your community is hugely important. In that book, it's a small town, so he knows everyone, right? He knows the head of the university, he knows
Yeah.
the sheriff, he knows the mayor, which is a really good idea. In a crisis, you want to make sure you know people. One, so that they can help you, but two, so that they know who you are and that you can develop this trust and rapport. Absolutely.
Mhm. What infrastructure do people need to have in their homes to survive an EMP?
I would say so. If you want, it's not too difficult to get a Faraday bag. Okay, there's Faraday backpacks on Amazon. There's Faraday phone protectors. That you name it. There's Faraday. There's rolls of Faraday material. If you really wanted to, you could try to make a home or one of the rooms in your home a Faraday, an essentially huge Faraday bag. But the question is, why do you need it? I personally think that it's a good idea to, if you have old phones, old computers, whatever, stick them in a Faraday bag or backpack. If you have solar chargers for your phones and computers, which are relatively inexpensive, I mean, you can find last year's model, it still works great.
Yeah.
Stick that in your Faraday bag. If you need things that you will really appreciate, put them in a Faraday bag, a backpack. You can put a lot of stuff in there, a radio, whatever it is, that later will really come to be very handy
Flashlight.
in a crisis. Like what?
A flashlight. Crazy
Well,
hour.
flashlight. So a flashlight may not be impacted by an EMP,
Okay.
but yeah, just I mean, if you have a kit, it's a good idea. If you do a bug out bag kit, you can
Yeah.
make sure that you have Faraday protection of that bag, and you can put those things in it. Yeah.
So basically, there's things that you might need for immediate like communication or survival and things like that. But in terms of like
Mm-hmm.
getting let's say you've got you want to get your refrigerator back up and running or something, or
So
you
you
want
would.
to charge your.
So there's nowadays there's the multi-energy source generators. There's solar generators, right? There's
Yeah.
gas, of course, sometimes even propane, and then sometimes a combination of them. I like those, right? Just because you have more options. But things that are mechanical, there's no question that they would start. Say your old tractors. My father-in-law's tractor, 10,
Yeah.
10, 10, 20, right? That thing is going to start because
Yes.
it's mechanical. It doesn't have any circuitry in it, okay? And
So for the
so
generator, shouldn't we be looking for something that's got like a like a pulley to pull start, or like
mechanical.
a
Yep,
or a
yep.
yeah.
If you can do
So
a mechanical pull instead of a push start. Yep. For motorcycles, a kick start instead of a push start, I mean, there has not been, I have not seen sufficient testing to say, okay, these type of products will be impacted by an EMP and these will definitely not. So you want to hedge your bets. So you know what I'm saying, if you don't have the ability to find a pre 1983 truck or car that everybody could work on back in the days, and
yeah.
nobody can touch their cars nowadays, then maybe you get a bicycle, right? And maybe you have a extra pair of tires, or at least you have a blowout set, right? If you're going to blow a tire, have some grease, all the stuff you would
Yeah.
need for a normal bicycle. Have a bicycle, because that's going
Yeah.
to be a way to get around.
So your old trucks, your old I was looking at different cars the other day. I was like looking at nice old Land
Mm-hmm.
Rovers or Humvees that you can get.
Sure.
You can get Humvees shipped in to the UK for 35 grand or something, which
Yep.
would be quite cool. But old Land Rovers, anything that's basically not got all this silly computer crap in the
Yep.
car,
Yep.
and pre
But you're still
1980s
going to
really.
be limited by gas and having to get access to gas.
So how much
So
gas should people like? Should people be stockpiling gas?
that is a whole slippery slope because you can buy gas preserving products like stable, okay, and that will help it to last 6 months, maybe even a year. But if you don't have the gas on hand, you're going to be trying to acquire the gas. Now, farmers around here will have diesel, and they'll have big containers with diesel and pumps on it, right? So
Yeah,
diesel, you're probably in a better position, but gas is
I
very
love diesel. I've
volatile.
always preferred diesel to petrol anyway.
Yeah, gas is very volatile, and I won't recommend getting a big old gas storage tank. Now, what you can do is have multiple 5 gallon containers for gas if you want, or 10 gallon, or whatever it is, and cycle through it. Just cycle through it.
Yeah.
Always have enough on hand to where you have a constant full supply. So at least you could get, if you were limiting your driving, you could still drive places, especially if you had a motorcycle or something like that.
Yes.
But that's something I recommend too is dirt bikes. If you're able to have a dirt bike, it goes that much further than a bicycle, right?
Absolutely. And then you can also like duck and weave in between if people are trying to get out of the city, you can be
Yes,
ducking and weaving.
absolutely.
So yeah, I mean, with food supplies, people need to have some kind of like food. I was, thinking about, okay, what do I have here? I need probably for a year, I'd probably need about sort of 100
Mm-hmm.
kilograms of lentils, let's say, if I was just eating
Mm-hmm.
lentils. I'm going to get
Mm-hmm.
pretty bored of, lentil stew after a couple of weeks' time.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
what can
I
I
mean,
be storing up in my larder?
legumes, wheat. If you're doing wheat, wheat can store for 20 years. And it's also got a shelf life for how long you could plant more if you really wanted to. But you have to have something to grind the wheat, right? So if you have a hand grinder, I'll tell you, we have one. It's a pain in the butt. It's a lot of work.
Yeah.
And it takes energy. And so what you're trying to do with your food supplies is you're trying to conserve energy, right? Because if you're going from 2,000 calories a day, which is a lot, down to 500 to 1,000 calories a day, you're going to be losing weight fast, right? You're going to be potentially getting tired. You might feel a little better because your pants fit and stuff, but you want to preserve that energy, and you need fats. You need protein, right?
Mhm.
And so lard stores for a long time, right? People had lard bins, right?
Mhm.
Like I said, you know, pickling things,
Yeah.
canning things, meats, those things. The problem is, it's a skill set that a lot of people don't have. So it's true. That's one of the things you would want to try to practice.
Hey, we're going to be
Even
launching a load of resources for people for that as well. So when we do have
Yeah,
all of those resources, we will have physical copies of that to help people with. So
I would say something. The most important thing, honestly, I think you should do in any prepping scenario, if you're going to stay in your location, is have a means of security, a way to protect yourself and your family and your stuff, right? And water. That's definitely something you need to do. So I know that you know of a lot of products for gardens, ways to collect rainwater, runoff off of your house,
yeah,
downspouts, storing
yeah,
it, all that stuff. Understanding how to purify water, whether
hmm
it's through boiling or iodine tablets, or even those life straws, those straw filtration that can go through a
hmm
lot of gallons before they're used up. Those things run $20 or so. I mean, I would
Wow.
definitely have water purification, water, stores of water, because you're going to go through
Yes,
a lot. You're going to need anywhere from a gallon to three a day, depending what you're doing.
yes,
And it's necessary for hygiene. It's not just drinking; it's for
yes,
cleaning. And you don't want to start getting dirty, nasty, because then you're just introducing a whole new series of problems into your life.
yes.
So yes, and ways to obtain that water. So that's crucial. The food, I would definitely have stores. So what happens if I can't go to Amazon and I need something? How are you going to get it, Will, in your town if you can't order something and the stores are closed because they've
Yeah.
all been looted and there's nothing left anyway? How are you going to get stuff?
Well, look, like, we're preppers. We're trying to be Orthodox preppers. So without going mad, I'm finding wholesale suppliers of, matches, toilet roll,
There you go.
candles,
There you go.
propane,
There you go.
water
Yes.
filters, etc. And
So you
I would, yeah.
you're bartering necessities, right? So some things I would recommend is freeze dried coffee, right?
Hmm.
Everyone loves coffee,
Hmm.
and if the grid goes to crap, guess what? Your coffee's not getting sent to you from Brazil or the rainforest or Africa or wherever it's at. So coffee is something people are really used to and would probably think very highly of. And you can buy these small little singlet packets, right, of
Interesting.
freeze
Yeah.
dried coffee, and they'll last 20 years. You stick them in a corner somewhere, they'll last for 20 years. Lighters will also be very valuable. Small
Mm.
things. Lithium batteries, they claim that they can store them for 20 plus years. And people will need batteries for their flashlights, for their
Yeah.
scopes if they have weapons. Just a whole host of things you'll need batteries for.
So
So,
you're talking about, okay, there are certain things you can stockpile that you could trade with people for other things, yeah, and like batteries, coffee,
oh, yeah.
lighters. Those are some of the
Oh,
three, yeah.
yeah. I
Because
mean, what happened in
currency. I mean, what use is currency?
Exactly. Exactly. What it's only good as the value behind it, right? And
Yeah.
in a crisis like that, it's not doing you much good. There's we could do a whole discussion on precious metals and all those things, but honestly, the practical things that you will want to trade, you want to have a lot of. You want it sitting there. You don't want to spend a lot of money on it. But alcohol, believe it or not, alcohol, as far as consumption, is something that people will be dying for in a crisis because they want to escape.
Cigarettes, unfortunately, as well.
Cigarettes, yeah. And I mean, I think those things get old over time, but I'd say alcohol is a little easier, right?
Yeah.
Doesn't even have to be high quality stuff.
Yeah.
Or at least maybe, getting a still, learning how to do it if you needed to, learning how to do wine or make wines from different vegetables or fruits. Just understanding the process of making wines.
Another thing, because right now, I mean, although the plan is in the next 6 months to a year to be rural, right now, I'm in London, and one of the things that I've thought about, I've got my wood burning oven which I can cook with, but
Yes.
also wood. Like, if I've got a lot of charcoal here, but when it comes to wood, I mean, I even recommend trying to salvage things like pallets if you can get like just a supply of
Yeah.
like waste wood, even if you're in an
Yeah.
urban place, because you
Sure.
never know how useful that wood is going to come in to build stuff or to burn.
Absolutely. When at some point we'll talk, I'm sure, about the remember the exact name right now, but the guys in Bosnia that how did they survive in the bombings when they were isolated and they were all getting bombed.
Yeah,
One of the things that he mentioned is anything wood that wasn't strapped down, nailed down, or secured was burned.
yeah,
I mean, people would burn furniture, people would burn
yeah.
doors just to stay warm, tear down sheds, whatever it was, to be able to have a source of wood. So yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so for two people, let's just say two ends of the spectrum. We've got our family man who's got a decent sized piece of land in a rural place,
Hmm.
either in wherever, Europe, America, Russia, wherever.
Hmm.
And then we've got on the other end of the spectrum, we've got a young
Hmm.
girl living with her parents, and she's thinking, what can I do? What can those two different people do? One of them is in the city, one of them
Yeah.
is in an urban environment. What can those two families do?
So you got to make a decision if you're in an urban environment, whether you're going to stay or whether you're going to leave, and understand that if you're going to leave, you want to be one of the first people to leave. So if you want to leave, you have to commit to it and understand what your lines are, that once they're crossed, they initiate another decision that will cause you to leave quickly. Because depending on the crisis, right, if there's an EMP, if cars are affected, if they start jamming up the highways and there's just dead cars everywhere, right? You know, what are you going to do? Are you going to hunker down in your apartment, where maybe you don't know anyone, or maybe you don't even feel comfortable because of the part of city you're in, or are you going to leave? So I would say the criteria for preparing a bug out bag and the decision to leave and having a means to navigate there, a means to communicate, a Faraday bag with push to talk radios or whatever it is, that's a whole different ball of wax than hunkering down, securing yourself, and trying to survive in an urban setting, with the resources that you have available to you, say in your apartment. Those are two completely different scenarios. The third scenario, while not guaranteed the best for survival, has key aspects of it that sure do make survival a lot easier, especially if you have some skills, especially if you're relatively more isolated. So again, of those three scenarios, if I was young and I was alone in a city and I didn't know anyone, I would make a decision to get a bug out bag and go to family, friends, someone I trust that's out in the country. That's what I personally would do. Some people think that that's a foolish idea because everybody's going to be bugging out and there's going to be people that are going to be setting up blockades on the road, and there's going to be vigilantes going around, and there's going to be criminals out there that are going to be taking from people. And I think that's absolutely true, but I don't think it's going to happen in the first few hours of something taking place.
Yeah.
So definitely have your resources together for yourself, your significant other. Make a plan, rehearse the plan, because any plan that's not rehearsed is just a nice dream, and prepare that way. If you're going to hunker down, you need to find a way to have water. You're going to have to find a way to secure yourself. You definitely want to get to know the people around you, especially if they're going to be staying. But if you have food in your apartment and people know it, right? If they smell you cooking, if they hear you really active in the day and they're lounging around dying on their couch because they have no food, no water, you might have a bad day if they come knocking on your door. So these are kind of decisions that I would be really thinking hard about.
If someone was thinking, "Hey, I've got this garden," this is, because actually maybe I'll answer this question. I'd say that if you have a sizable garden in London, there are several things that you can do to install raised beds, or even like hugel culture, which would be, without any kind of like boundaries, or you could even have like a sort of no dig system, but you can start growing food in your own backyard now,
Sure. Yeah.
and
Yeah.
if everyone did that, hey, if enough people did that, you got a lot less chaos and a lot less
Absolutely.
strife.
Absolutely. I mean, there were, in World War II, people had their victory gardens, right?
Yeah,
Everybody had their garden. People knew how to can things. They had sauerkraut. They would last
yeah,
them through winter. They pickled things. They, you know, in Russian households, we have some called zakuski, which is your
yeah,
your appetizers, and they're your beets. They're your pickled herring. They're
yeah.
your pickles. Your anything, pickled eggs, you name it. All those things are extremely important to have through the winter, and it's a great skill set to develop. Plus, it tastes good. I mean, it's great,
Yeah.
right? So definitely canning is something I would focus on trying to get a skill set on. Yeah,
There's a
staying
whole there's
warm
a
is
whole
going to
there's a whole delicatessen. Delicatessen. There's a whole cuisine. There's a whole
yeah,
prepper's cuisine here. That you want to get your taste buds used to.
right, right. Yeah.
So essentially, like an EMP. I mean, who knows? We spoke at the beginning of the conversation about, okay, what's the likelihood of an EMP,
Hmm.
mass EMP, but more likely is something like, China taking Taiwan and using an EMP, but we don't know what
Hmm.
that will then lead to. And
Right.
even
Right.
in recent history, we've had, there was a North Korean sabotage, right, of some substations. Is that correct?
Hmm.
They were using
Uh,
snipers, or was it what was it?
well, you talk about the United States.
Correct. Yeah.
So there were some substations. If you're talking the ones like in North Carolina, yeah, there were individuals that were sniping substations, and they knew what portions of it to hit.
Right.
Some people thought they were trying to make a political statement. Other people thought that they were trying to, cause all-out panic, civil war kind of situation, if you will. Have you ever seen the movie Civil War? By the way, it's fairly recent. It's a year or two old. I mean, it's
Wasn't it
it's got
produced by
some good.
Barack Obama?
Oh, yeah.
He
What
was
did
the
he have to do
executive
with it?
producer. He was the executive producer.
Was he the executive producer on it? I think I
Yeah.
remember that.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
That's a pretty, it's not. I'm not going to say it's a great movie, but it definitely makes you think. Um, and I thought it did a decent job of showing kind of dystopia, um, how things would progress. Just a lot of uncertainty. I mean, we in America have a lot of weapons, right? A
Hmm.
lot of weapons, a lot of ammo. I don't know if it would be that situation in the UK where, you're out on a road, you're driving somewhere, and you get shot just because they could care less about you. They just want your stuff, right? I don't
Hmm.
know. I don't know how common that would be in the UK if you did have a breakdown of infrastructure. I think that's pretty realistic for this country.
Hmm.
But then you would really have to band together as a community. That civil defense book, again, going back to that, you would really have to establish your authority, have roving patrols to
Hmm.
provide security to your community. You would be checking, neighbors would be checking in on neighbors.
Hmm.
You would be signaling with smoke. You'd be signaling with bells, whatever you've got. You know, just to communicate with your community this situation. So, yeah,
And we can go through some of those kind of community preparedness plans that are discussed
sure.
in this book in
In
another
the
episode.
future,
But
yeah.
we're
Yep.
talking about we've spoken about specifically EMP, which
Hmm.
could happen. We don't know when, but um, it's
So
one of
in
the
2020 when we were locked down, Will, what did you do with your time?
well, 2020. I spent a lot of time researching the like
So you were on a
inflation.
computer.
I
You
was
were on a
yeah, so I
computer.
was researching the statistics around COVID deaths and like the way
Hmm.
cause of death and that kind of stuff because I just was
Hmm.
completely flabbergasted that they were getting away with such a massive lie.
Oh,
And then
absolutely,
I was working out.
absolutely, yeah.
I got really fit, but I didn't really. Yeah, I mean, we had the computer, so everyone was on Zoom, doing Zoom and all that crap.
Now, what would you do if it was 2020 again? Martial law declared, everyone's staying your home for the foreseeable future, but you didn't have a computer. What would you do?
Write and read and
This is
write,
so funny. It's like, to me, the answer is so simple. But yes, what would you do? Say that again. I'm sorry.
read and write.
Read and write. Okay. Okay. Good. So you would
Yeah.
actually write. That's creative. Awesome. But yeah, reading, reading is definitely something. And then after you finish how many books do you own? 40, 50, 60? I don't know.
I've got quite a few to be fair. I've got like,
Do
but
you
the
have a
thing is,
lot
I
of
don't
books?
know. A lot of them
I'm
are.
not
The thing is,
surprised.
a lot of them
You're a
are
smart guy. You're a
how to get
smart guy.
rich. Marketing, sell like crazy. So I'm not sure how useful that would be really during a An EMP.
Would you be praying more if you didn't have that computer and
Oh
Zoom?
yeah, absolutely. I mean, hopefully I'd be able to get to church. I'd be going, trying to go to church, hanging out with people in church, just making sure everyone was all right.
Yeah.
And honestly, I'd be growing food. I'd be growing our food and installing these gardens for people as we are, at the moment. That's what
Yeah,
we'd be
yeah,
doing.
absolutely.
But we'd just
Yep.
be doing it analog somehow, knocking on doors, um,
Yep.
yeah, and going out with some shovels and digging for victory again. I guess that's what we'd be
That would be
doing.
great. I think that would actually that would really be good for a community to have
Yeah,
people like you doing that in a crisis because it would give people a purpose. They wouldn't be
yeah,
sitting in their house twiddling their thumbs, waiting on the government to bring them food, right?
yeah,
They would actually be going out and doing something about it, which is so crucial, so important.
yeah, yeah,
As far as the books go, I mean, being an Orthodox Christian, I would make sure I have plenty of prayer books, right?
yeah.
Plenty of books to read, specifically talking about difficulty, hardship, how it's a
Mm,
part of life, why it's
yeah.
not an anomaly to us, but it's very much an expected part of our
Mm,
faith. I would definitely be having those type of books as well handy.
absolutely. Yeah, totally. All of the books that detail like under the communist yoke, particularly the saints who went through that. It's like
Yes.
there's so
Y-
much.
y- Yes, absolutely. Absolutely.
There's so much
Yep.
there.
Yep.
So the lesson for today is, I guess, we're too reliant on these machines that, I mean, they're amazing, they're beautiful in a way, but we're totally reliant and becoming
Yeah.
stupid and
Yeah.
unskilled because of our reliance on these very
Yeah.
fragile forms of technology.
Yeah.
And it would only take one little solar flare, just like that, just like the sun going like that into the
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Earth's atmosphere to disrupt the, magnetic
Yep.
field. What do you call it? The magnetic field of the Earth.
The
Anyway,
magnetosphere. Yeah,
the
it protects us.
magnetosphere.
It protects us from the sun's energy, and yeah, it protects us. Thank God it's there.
Thank God it's there, but we're
Mm-hmm.
completely at the whim of, these,
Yeah.
well, God's will, really. But we pray that this doesn't happen, but we want to just say that, like, all of the information that we have just detailed in this episode, if you have any
Mm-hmm.
questions about what you can do personally to get more prepared in your community, wherever you are, if you're in Kansas City, Missouri, if you're in rural Wales, if you're in London, wherever you are, if you want to get in
Mm-hmm.
contact with us, our email is in the show description, and we'll be doing more episodes specifically about, okay, what do you grow in your garden? What do you store in your cellar? So,
Yeah.
but we've just given an overview this episode. Is there anything that you'd want to add, Alex?
No, I think it's a good discussion. There's a lot of directions that they can go. You know what I mean? There's I would almost encourage the people that are listening here to really just try for one day. Just try for one day to not use your phone. I mean, if you have to for an emergency, okay, an emergency, take a call from a wife or something like that. But just tell yourself, like, today I'm not going to surf the internet. I'm not going to go click on X. I'm not going to go, do rage clicking and all this. Just see what it's like for one day to not do it and see how you feel. And try to imagine doing that for weeks and months at a time. Just it's we're so vulnerable, we're so reliable on immediate gratification and immediate information. We were talking to our kids the other evening at dinner, like how you would find things out. So we've shown them a dictionary. We said this is how you would find out what a word means. You would have to go look it up, and we've actually taught them how to do it because we homeschool our kids. And well, what if you wanted like more information? Well, you had these things called encyclopedias, and people used to knock on your door, and they used to try to sell you a set, and it was thousands of dollars, and it was a big deal that you had a
Mm-hmm.
Encyclopedia Britannica or whatever it was.
Mm-hmm.
Well, then what if it didn't answer? What if it didn't have the answers from that? You would find someone who was an expert, or you would ask people if they knew someone who was an expert. Well, what if you couldn't get an answer then? Then you didn't know. What?
Mm-hmm.
That was it. You stopped. I mean, it's like it didn't process with them like.
Mm. But funnily enough, people knew a lot more.
Yeah, well, we talked about libraries as well, and that's why libraries were such a valuable resource because there are places to go do research and things, and you know, um, anyway, I just wanted to bring that up. I thought it was pretty
Yeah,
funny
totally.
but relevant
One
to
of
the
the
topic.
key
So,
resources again, that we will be, going over the books that we have, the ones that we recommend, maybe even producing our own kind of like manuals and whatnot. But like
hmm
maps, books that have specific how-to guides,
yeah,
DIY build guides. How do you build a greenhouse? How
yeah,
do you build,
yeah,
etc.? How do you, those are super useful, and
absolutely.
we will recommend the ones that we've got, and be promoting that as
And
well.
the great thing about your business and your focus, Will, is you're doing things to your community specifically there in the UK, right? Because we had a conversation before here about just the climate differences between our place here in Missouri and your place there, London and England and all the places around there. It's very, very different from the bugs we have to the weeds we have
Yeah,
to, the drastic weather and things like that. So, but you guys, you have less sun, right? You have more rain, I would say, than we probably do.
yeah,
So anyway, I think it's great that you're going to be able to tailor that to your area as well.
yeah, totally. Yeah, absolutely. All right,
Okay.
cool. So, guys, until next time, we hope to see you in paradise. From Alex and I in America and the UK, God bless.
God bless.